An improved Takuma Sato. He has had a very difficult first half of the season. Shows tons and tons of speed. We know he's got the speed. It's a natural part of his driving skill. What he hasn't got is the maturity, or maybe the brain, let's say, to know when to push and when not to push. And also probably suffering a lack of testing. It's been a problem for a lot of the teams this year that they don't get the amount of testing that they need. The stronger, the better financed teams at the top of the league have got independent and fully supported teams. Teams like Jordan, they do test. They have a test team, but because of some of the redundancies and the cutbacks that Jordan made mid-season, that restricts the testing available. And when you've got a young driver like Sato who needs mileage to mature, and he's only getting it at race weekends, well, then you're going to pay the price.
Craig Pollock, a busy man at the moment, negotiating no doubt about what's happening with Jacques Villeneuve for next year, whether he goes to America for a year and then comes back to Formula One, and also involved in negotiations with the Arrows team. The Arrows team not here this weekend, of course, but Pollock involved in one of the groups, looking possibly to buy out the Arrows Formula One team. Well, it depends what they have to buy, of course, and if the team doesn't race this weekend, then it's in danger of losing its Formula One rights. Not necessarily straight away. There are various rules and regulations. If a team goes into liquidation, it loses its rights straight away, but that hasn't happened as yet.
Well, Craig Pollock, you think he's acting like a team principal here, although he is still a shareholder in BAR. We're talking to the Honda representative and also to BAR people. Now, you know, is he saying, are you looking after my boy? Are you going to make sure he gets the better of the engines? One never knows, but the fact is that Jacques has got a cast-iron contract with BAR to drive next year at a sum of money, which of course is considered by team principal Dave Richards to be, well, more than he would like to pay. He would like to see some of that money, in fact, be diverted into the team. I mean, that's quite simple. I mean, really, all you do is go to Jacques and say, Jacques, if you really want to be a member of this team and you want to see you and the team move forward, give up 50% of your salary and put it into the team. Now, that would show willing and commitment, but I don't think racing drivers are made like that.
Well, no, perhaps not. Although it was interesting to read some comments from David Coulthard this last couple of weeks, saying that he, to some extent, regretted the move he made from Williams to McLaren early in his career, when McLaren wasn't that strong at the time, and his management company at that time perhaps encouraged him to make the move, more for money than, as he felt, for performance. He found himself in the middle of the grid, and he said at that point he decided he would never move for money over performance, and since then, of course, he stayed at McLaren, feeling that McLaren is very much the team to give him the best opportunity of the World Championship.
Well, Frank Williams looks like he's about to turn right and go somewhere near the Renault motorhome, which is rather interesting. But it's one of those situations for, well, I always say that's at Flavio Briatore. It wasn't quite Renault, but nevertheless, Frank just catching up with Flavio, and no doubt the meetings that take place, endless meetings go on between the various team principals.
Now, Peter, I think you may have some news for us down in the pit lane.
I have indeed, Ben. Yes, Mario was very amused to hear that he'd been caught on television by John Watson exchanging money with Roger Benoit. I asked him actually what bet it was that he placed, and he said the only bet on offer that Roger's offering is how many laps in the race will Michael Schumacher do tomorrow, and that's what they're all betting on. And I asked Mario what he said, and he said he thought he'd go the full distance and finish second. So I guess you two guys have to give your opinion, and I know you'll both go for the boring one, so I'll go for the interesting one and say I think you'll have a Barrichello-like problem on the grid and he won't even do the first lap. Wouldn't like to see that, of course, but there you go.
It's that time that he had that, of course. I mean, it's been such a long time since he's had any kind of mechanical problem, isn't it?
Well, I suppose you can always have that first corner incident, depending who's on the front row of the grid, depending where Michael might be. We could see a very interesting start to this year's Hungarian Grand Prix. As pit lane is once again open, and Ralf Schumacher makes his way down as the first car out of the pit lane, and we've got now just over 43 minutes of this session to go.
So great conditions here. We've seen more sunshine today than we saw yesterday, rather overcast conditions. We even had a little light drizzle of rain for the Friday free practice, which didn't really affect anything. It's actually beautiful now. It's 28 degrees track temperature, 25 degrees air temperature. Track's cleaning up all the time, as we've come to expect, and Ralf Schumacher now coming out to build towards a qualifying setup now on the Williams chassis. Did a good job in Germany for the back to 1986 and the first Hungarian Grand Prix.
So Ralph Schumacher threads his way around this opening lap of the second part of practice, and track conditions basically should have improved, because the half hour from when they stopped to when they recommenced really isn't long enough to see any deterioration in circuit conditions, though nonetheless cars were brought back in. We saw Jenson Button's Renault being brought back in, and when you put commercial vehicles on track, goodness knows what might drop off those, especially one that is sourced out of the heart of Budapest.
Box is flat, thank you. Box is flat. Box.
There, the back end steps out. He corrects it, of course, by which time he's onto the very dirty part of turn one. He's got no options just to go onto it. There's the on view. Watch the oversteer. Whoa! I mean, not an oversteer. He got it on the lock stops, but by which time he gets it straightened out, it's on the grass, then in the gravel, back on the grass, and then Eddie Irvine also coming out of turn six, the back end of the Jaguar. Looks like it's not attached to the front.
I think I saw something on TV, broke off it.
A little bit of radio.
Get ready for some barge boards, Mick. Yeah?
Well, look at the back of the Jaguar all over the shop.
Let's just make sure the other nose is set to 18.5. Sorry, 18 degrees in the other nose. Make sure it's there just in case you have to use that.
Teams, Jordan, I think that is, talking about preparing, making sure they've got a spare wing, spare barge boards available in case Takuma Sato made any damage to the front end of his car once he went off.
So we'll change tyres straight away. It's going to be 212 front and 210 rear. Okay.
Eddie Irvine continues. That first corner quite tricky, John, isn't it? In the fact that you're coming down into that first corner about 190 miles an hour. And then you're braking, it does drop downhill quite steeply, and you've got to brake into the corner a little bit.
Yes, and what makes it even more so is because you're braking downhill, the back of the car is not as secure as it would ordinarily be if you're braking on the level, and you're turning at the same time. And it's like getting, on a fruit machine, you get all the 3 lemons coming up at one time. Well, that's what turn 1 feels like. Now, if you're in a Ferrari, it's all oranges, but even Ferrari on occasions we've seen can get a little bit sort of wayward. That's misting on the camera lens. It's not weather pattern change, so don't worry about that. David Coulthard's view is actually clear as gin.
Well, he's currently finds himself down in 12th place. No improvements as yet. It's a smart start to this second session, but we've got a Ferrari out there now, so we could see some improvements coming along. They might still be using the tyres that they ran in the first session for now, saving up some fresh tyres for later on. Michael Schumacher fastest overall, remember, today, as he was yesterday. 1 minute 14.329, his fastest so far.
It must make you weep if you were driving for a team in the midfield to see this car, how consistently good it's been all year. I mean, apart from the fact Michael Schumacher is the best driver in Formula 1 by a country mile, nonetheless, the car makes his job, well, 5,000% easier than anybody else's. But he's pushing hard, he's trying hard, 3/10ths down. Did have the highest speed at the end of that second or middle sector, but this lap time is not going to match the 1:14.3 we saw from him this morning.
Let's see him just out of the last corner there, over the curb slightly as he comes out. I think he's on used tyres, so that's still a pretty effective time, a 15.2. It's still nearly a second faster than everybody else is managing. Panis third fastest, best of the rest, but it's a long, long gap between them. Button is back in the car. Hopefully
should see an improvement. It'll not put him quickest, but it'll bring him closer. It does, 1:14.7, contrasting to Michael's 1:14.3. But Ben, a point that's worth making right now, if these times are repeated in qualifying and the Minardi cannot improve, both Minardis presently are outside the 107%. So, bringing in Anthony Davidson to both Minardis in the race may not be an issue, because if they can't improve both cars, then they could not be in the race.
Well, I think that just shows you this time that the Michelin tyre really is not quite as competitive with the Bridgestone as we have seen on some occasions, because when the Michelin tyre's been favourable, the Minardis have been right, okay, at the back, but they've been challenging quite often Jaguars and Toyotas. Although they're on the same tyre, they're still on the Michelins as well. They're also at the back of the field at the moment. So it definitely looks like the Bridgestones have the advantage currently, and we'll have to see what happens in qualifying itself. So down in the Ferrari pit.
And those people are rather important. Paolo Cantonella, these are the bosses of Fiat, and that doesn't get much higher than that. And when they start turning up at Grand Prix to see what they're spending their money on, certainly they should be very, very happy indeed with the performance of Ferrari. And there's Carlos Monteverdi to his right, a driver of Ferrari.
the advantage compared to the cars on the other manufacturers. So looking good.
But I just noticed the flags are blowing much harder now. Does that mean things are going to be that much different for you?
Yeah, it changes the way the car feels. It also brings a lot of dust on the track.
Thank you, Jack.
Great enthusiasm.
Craig Pollock chatting to Olivier Panis, and there's some smiles down there at the moment with Panis third fastest currently. I wonder if they can match that sort of performance in qualifying. Of course, Silverstone was their highlight of the season so far, with both drivers getting into the points. Panis' best qualifying so far this year has been 7th on the grid last time out in Germany. Best qualifying performance only 9th. So we'll have to see what happens here today. 2.9 seconds off the pace at the moment. Villeneuve currently 10th fastest.
Well, we're watching Jacques Villeneuve, and he didn't improve on that lap. Massa, and he is currently 4th quickest on a 16.1, 16.4 this lap. The man who's probably going to make an improvement is actually Jenson Button. Here we ride with Button, and he is the man that ended up with that change to the chassis. Remember, put a little bit more caster into it. Well, it's helped him. He's gone 9th quickest, so Jenson knotted that off towards the end of the first part of practice this morning. He may have seen that improvement come, so clearly the work on the suspension has helped.
On a new set of tyres that time was set, because we did see new tyres on the car as he came out. Ooh, and he still managed to run wide there through turn number 12. We'll see plenty of that in qualifying, I think, later on today. 16.7 on new tyres, might well have quite a bit of fuel on board, but it's still not a particularly quick time, I would say.
And that looks like some dry ice being used in the Jordan pits to keep various parts cool as we watch Mika Salo on the back end of the Toyota. Looks like it's not sometimes giving Salo the easiest of rides, so you've got to be off the throttle. Salo down in 16th. He did improve, or he has improved in that first sector. He's now picked up time in the second sector. It goes through turn 12. Easy to run wide. Coulthard turned in there. We saw that towards the end of the first sector, just didn't turn at all and went so far off track he had to go behind the advertising hoarding on the outside of the corner. So Salo comes round turn 14 and soon see him move slightly further up the field.
Across the line he goes, yes indeed, a big improvement. He goes to 7th, so Salo inside the top 10 once again, and if he can match that sort of performance in qualifying, that would be a surprise to everybody, but it's a little less likely, I would say. Takuma Sato on the Bridgestones. Just thinking once again, John, about the Arrows situation. It is a great shame that they weren't able to race this weekend with the performance of the Bridgestone tyre, which the Arrows team uses, of course. Tight and twisty little track like this. Frentzen qualified a good 12th at Monaco this year. To have to miss Hungary for the Arrows boys is a really tough call, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a great shame. I think the car is a really excellent little car. They've got a good engine. The package, what it needed was funding to enable them to do more development, to do a lot more testing, to have the kind of comfort zone, if you like, that a larger budget gives a team. And you know, when the potential is there, to not see it getting realised is almost heartbreaking.
Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber. Now, remember, he's on the Bridgestone tyre as well, battling with the likes of Fisichella for the honour of being best of the rest, and with Panis, of course. His teammate Massa are actually 4th fastest. Heidfeld 8th, but he's got a good first sector going here, 24.8. It's about 6/10 slower than the lead Ferrari through the first sector. Let's see what the second sector time is, plus 1.7 there, so not a brilliant mid-sector for the German.
Well, it may see a small improvement depending on that lock up into turn 13 may just shave away another few thousandths of a second. So Heidfeld battling with his teammate Felipe Massa is 4th quickest in spite of all the offs the track we've seen. So Heidfeld comes across line, was 8th and remains 8th in a 16.9, some 0.3 of a second away from his best.
So we're just 27.5 minutes away from the end of morning free practice. Weather conditions looking pretty good. Light cloud around. Not the high temperatures that we tend to see in Hungary at this time of year. And an opportunity for everybody to just start getting those cars set up for qualifying. Begin to pump the fuel out. Perhaps try another new set of tyres towards the end of this session. Because feeling how the car responds on a new set of tyres and in qualifying trim, important as they head towards that 1 hour session where it has to count. Now, what are we looking at here? Somebody's made a little mistake. One of the Jordans this was.
Give you a guess.
Yeah, it has to be Sato, doesn't it? we don't often see Fisichella getting into a slide like that. And Barrichello heading down pit lane. Out onto the track once again. He's completed 15 laps so far this morning. Most laps so far today have been completed by Jacques Villeneuve. and Anthony Davidson. Davidson's done some 24 laps. In fact, Davidson's on track at the moment and is likely to go a little quicker. He's just set his own fastest first sector time. There is the young Englishman with his first experience of a race weekend, and Davidson is on new tyres, we gather, and he's also gone faster than his previous best over the mid-sector.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Davidson can get inside this 107%. It'll be great to see both the Minardis in the race. It'll be a great shame if he has gone 19th and 18th. That would be enough. That time is enough currently. Now that, of course, relates to the time Michael Schumacher's done. He's done there's somebody off big time in the gravel, and that's McNish. Alan McNish has gone off, and that's at turn 11.
Yes, hopefully without damage, and he can rejoin, get back onto the track. He's 17th fastest. He'd just done a good first sector. Mid-sector wasn't anything special, but this is the corner that causes problems. They try and carry a lot of speed into it. Let's take a look here from the onboard view. Turns it, it goes straight away.
Absolutely, did it ever go? I mean, talk about catch you out. I mean, I don't think Alan McNish knew where he was going. Suddenly the back end was gone and she went. And luckily the gravel there, well, he bounces across. Again, the bottom bounces quite violently. In fact, the bottom of the car will get a really good rub down from all that gravel, and Alan wisely goes back into the pits. On board with David Coulthard. Just Ben checking through the qualifying last year. Coulthard, front row of the grid, 1 minute 14.8. David Coulthard on lap 17 so far. Best is on 1:17.334.
That's a bit of a surprise, but don't forget he may not have put in a quick qualifying type attempt. Barrichello's on a quick lap now. Good first sector, 24.149. The purple times come up on the timing screen. Sky button 5, remember, if you want to have a look at all of the times in detail. The purple colouring indicating a new fastest time in that sector for Barrichello, and that means he could take over fastest time overall from Michael Schumacher. But let's see what the second split tells us. 53.718 to this point for Michael. What's it going to be for Barrichello? He is just 51 thousandths of a second slower than that, so still an opportunity for Barrichello to go fastest overall.
Don't lock up that inside wheel. He's got through turn 13 cleanly. Accelerates up to 14, a little kick at the back as it goes over that bump. It looks pretty good. So Barrichello on course to try to get close, if not improve. Well, it gets within a tenth of a second of Michael Schumacher.
So it is close indeed, but the two Ferraris massively faster. Raikkonen goes third fastest though, beats the time of Olivier Panis, which has stood for quite a while. So now he is just 1 point, well I say just, but he's 1.4 seconds off the fastest that we've seen so far today. Montoya just taking things fairly steady. Looks as though he's on fairly worn tyres. Let's see, did he make a mistake here somewhere?
Well, normally the slow, that's his own teammate. And Montoya's got to go the long way round, turn 5, and he'll not be terribly happy about that.
Coulthard, yes, improving 6th fastest, so he does climb up the order. 1:16.3 compares to 1:15.7 from Raikkonen on his previous lap, so 6/10 of a second between them.
Yes, I'm still slightly confused as to why McLaren at this stage should still be, 14.8, 16.3, 1.6 seconds away from where they were last year. Now I know when they go into a qualifying setup, take the fuel out, and you get one of those blinding laps from the Scotsman, that time probably will come, but it doesn't say an awful lot for progress.
Well, we shall just have to see how things turn out. This time last year when they were in the Saturday morning session, it was David who set the pace on a 1:15.2. As you say, still some way off. That Montoya's gone off. So it looks as though he's kept it out of the barrier as well. That's again our
12.
Yes, turn 12. So it's the one that seems to be catching just about everybody out.
But the problem, you come into the corner and you see when they turn the wheel, Coulthard again was the person that had the biggest problem this morning. You turn the wheel and the thing doesn't respond. I mean, that's exactly the same for Montoya. He came down, turned the wheel, but he went off even earlier than Coulthard did. Fortunately, gets it stopped, slowed down, and able to get on that little bit of access grass that'll bring him back to the track. And Frank Williams sits and watches the pictures. No, Frank, looking at it, it's not going to change what you've seen.
So at the moment it's two Ferraris, then the McLaren and the BAR Honda of Olivier Panis. Massa, Coulthard 5th and 6th, Fisichella, Salo is 8th place, then Heidfeld 9th and Ralf Schumacher 10th. Then it's Button, Montoya, Villeneuve, Sato, Trulli down in 15th place at the moment in the second Renault. De La Rosa is 16th ahead of McNish, Irvine, and then it's Davidson and Webber at the back.
Threading his way around these corners around the back of the circuit, and just has to be very careful. That's the corner that We saw a button go off, now it comes down into this flip-flap, the right-left. So 2.5 seconds down in that second sector, so Ralf Schumacher and Williams just continuing this work, which is really building towards the race rather than thinking about qualifying. If this is thinking about qualifying, then forget about the race.
That's right, yeah, you need to be up front, and at the moment they're nowhere near it, but I still think that we'll see Williams in that battle. They might not be as fast as Ferrari today, but it would take something pretty special for a BAR or a Sauber to come out ahead of McLaren and Williams when it comes to the actual qualifying session, particularly with the capabilities of the likes of Montoya, Ralph, Coulthard and Raikkonen. Montoya making his way out for the moment as we count down the clock, just 21 minutes to go in this session, and then we'll be getting towards qualifying and that all-important 60 minutes.
Nicky, morning, how are you?
Morning.
Good. Last week you told me you didn't expect to have too much here. Looking forward to Belgium. Is it as bad or better than you expected?
I mean, as you know, this circuit is very demanding. You need here a real good car, the drivers to be fit, as you know, very tiring circuit. So the main issue here will be the tires, as you can imagine. And what you can see already until now is that the Bridgestone, especially with the Ferrari combination here, it really looks good. It seems a perfect package. So not only us, everybody else has big troubles here to come up with good lap times.
And you're looking forward to Belgium, the new front suspension?
Front suspension will be tested next week. The first time we expect a small improvement in the car, which we're going to race the first time in Spa.
Nicky, in the press conference yesterday, you were pressed on the Jordan question about engine supply. First of all, are engines available to Jordan from Cosworth?
They are available, especially next year, because the engine we're using now is available next year, because we're going to get a TJ engine, which is a 90-degree engine, which we're going to use. So I do negotiate with Eddie Jordan about an engine deal, but he has to decide if he wants to leave his Japanese engine and join us or not. So it's up to him really now.
And Nicky, if he does go down the Cosworth route, it will be an engine that he has to pay for, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an engine deal, the same as we have done with Arrows, and this is what we're trying to negotiate. So I would hope that Eddie would use our engine, because I think it's a good engine.
Well, Eddie doesn't want to pay for it, he wants Ford to brand it. Is that possible?
This is something Eddie has to negotiate. From my point of view, it's a straight engine deal between Jordan and Cosworth.
Would you like to see Ford branding on an engine in a Jordan?
I mean, the engine for sure will be called a Ford Cosworth. This is no question about it. So the Ford branding will be together with a Cosworth name on the car.
So I expect you're going to be back in the Jordan motorhome. You've been in yesterday, you've been in this morning, you're going back in this afternoon?
Now we're going to see. It's up to Eddie now to take a decision.
Okay, Nicky, I'll let you get back to your work. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, and great to have that input from Niki Lauda. And good stuff there, John. It's interesting to hear what's going on, and it sounds like it's down to Eddie Jordan to make some decisions fairly quickly as to what's going to happen for next year. Now let's get back to what's happening on track. It's still Michael Schumacher fastest overall, no great surprise. Barrichello on that 1:14.4, only a tenth of a second slower than his teammate. Raikkonen still third, ahead of Panis. Jarno Trulli here trying to improve. He's down in 15th, but the first sector looking promising, a 24.6 to the first checkpoint, about half a second slower than a Ferrari to that same point. Let's see what he can do now over the second part of the lap. That's pretty good actually, 1.4 off the Ferraris. That'll bring him up into the top four.
Well, that was certainly a big improvement for Jarno Trulli as he hops, skips and jumps over the exit of turn 12. It does seem to catch you out in the back of the car. It does get a hammering as you go over the curb, but into turn 14, the back end breaks away, has to correct it on the exit of the corner. So Trulli improving first, second sectors. He does. He goes sixth quickest.
Yeah, not quite as quick as I thought, but still a big improvement for him. He's a couple of tenths away from getting into fourth position if he could have just found 2 more tenths of a second. But a good improvement nonetheless. Let's hope that Renault are going to be in that battle. And a 1:16.3. Now, we've seen the best of the rest at the moment for McLaren behind Ferrari, and Peter Windsor's got a chance to speak to Ron Dennis.
Ron, John Watson's just been pointing out that This time last year, at exactly this moment in this practice session, you were going considerably quicker than you are this year. Wonder if you've got any comments to make about that.
Well, there's a couple of variables in there somewhere, isn't there? Yeah, well, I think it's an accurate observation.
Last year you were on Bridgestones, of course.
Oh, there you go. That's an accurate observation too.
Okay, enough said, I think. How's it going otherwise?
Well, I think the ambient going up is helping our situation. It's pretty frustrating. It's pretty much sums it up.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, yeah, that sums it up pretty well from Ron Dennis as well. He's not particularly happy with the way things are progressing currently. And it's really all about these two red cars. They are in just a different league here at the moment.
Yes, and I think it's in fairness, and I didn't point it out at the time, that last year McLaren were on the tyres that we were watching Ferraris on. That was the Bridgestone tyre. I think that Ron would find it a bitter pill to have to say. Nevertheless, I think his comments summed it up. He is not happy at all with the performance of his package. He's not going to single out any single part of it. He says it is a package, and we need to work on it across the board.
So Barrichello 6/10 slower on that lap than he has done so far, because remember, he's only a fraction off of his fastest time to Michael. There is the comparison between the two Ferrari teammates. What a car this is. The Bridgestone tyre is good, but the Ferrari chassis, so superb, supreme. We've watched it throughout the weekend so far, not only here but at all the other Grand Prix, and it looks absolutely brilliant. So even the Bridgestone tyre isn't the full answer, where we've got Bridgestones on some of the other cars like the Saubers here and the Jordans, but in terms of pace they're still miles away from that Ferrari.
Yes, and I think also, I was referring to David Coulthard, not to Kimi Raikkonen. Of course, Kimi in a McLaren for the first time, and Raikkonen in third place, 15.7, Coulthard in seventh place on a 16.3, so you've got the best part of half a second between the two McLaren drivers.
Well, he's spoken to Ron Dennis. Now Peter is at Williams,
where there is, I suppose you call it calm efficiency, but it's not really what you'd expect at this stage of the weekend. Juan Pablo out of the car, making massive changes to his car, front and rear. Nothing mechanically dramatic going on, just suspension changes. I would think they're probably putting on a full qualifying spec right now. That involves a lot, and if we're correct in what we were saying earlier about moving the weight ballast, that's probably why they've had the car in bits. Also, don't forget, when they go in qualifying, they're running very different traction control settings as well, maybe as much as 10%, whereas normally in the race they'd be down to about a 5% traction control. But interesting to see the contrast between Juan Pablo's car there, and if you can just pan over to Ralph, just sitting quietly in his car, helmet off, balaclava on, as is his fashion. Not much going on around his car at all. So I think it sums it up, as Ron Dennis said. At the moment, the Michelin teams, the top Michelin teams, are really scrabbling for grip and making all the changes they can to try and find some.
Well, interesting to see that, Peter. Thank you very much. And as we've seen really over the weekend so far, Ralph has been reasonably happy with the handling of his car, at least feeling that he's getting the best out of it, and that would seem to be borne by the fact that they're not making many changes. Montoya much less happy, and they're working a lot harder.
Yeah, there's about a tenth of a second between Ralph in 11th and Montoya in 13th, so they're not a great deal of difference, but it's how those two drivers are achieving their performance. If you can achieve that time in a relatively comfortable fashion, and you are happy fundamentally with the balance, not necessarily with the time, then you can certainly work on the speed.
Now across the line goes Nick Heidfeld, and he holds on to his current 10th place. Davidson's on a good lap. He's looking to improve once again. He's 19th at the moment, if you remember, but looking to make sure that they set a time that will be within the 107% when it comes to qualifying. Doesn't matter at the moment, but it gives them an indicator. Good lap, 118.483. That's well inside the mark, the 107% mark at the moment from Michael Schumacher's current lap. But remember, Michael may well go much faster than he's done already, a 114.3 so far.
Yes, and we're anticipating something in the 113s for Schumacher, or whoever pole position is, and if Davidson can repeat that 118.4, that should see him, even if there's a 113, that he'll be comfortably inside the 107%. The trouble is that for Davidson, he's going to go into qualifying for a Grand Prix for the first time in his life. It's going to be a whole new world. It's going to open his eyes like he's never had them open before, and he's going to find traffic, he's going to find dirty circuits, he's going to find people pushing and bullying him all over the place, and it's very, very tough for a youngster with the limited amount of motor racing experience that Anthony Davidson has to go out and go eyeball to eyeball with 21 other competitors.
So, well, let's just see what happens. We've only got 11.5 minutes to go in this session. Fisichella there. Again, a good first sector from Fisichella. Davidson's still on another quick lap, actually. Looks as though he might put in a second, slightly improving lap as they look at that 107% time. And Fisichella here, 8th fastest currently. Not sure that this is going to improve on that across the line. No, he stays in 8th place. A little faster, certainly, than his teammate now, because Takuma Sato's down in 17th place. But I expect we might see a few quick laps coming up from the Japanese driver soon.
Yes, and I suspect, well, those look reasonably fresh. Bridgestones and Fisichella. Whoa, Giancarlo, stop it, get it back, hold it. Whoa, he did a good job. He made a sort of a bit of a mess going into turn 2, and it almost looked like it was going to get away. Remember, with the rain that had fallen last night, the grass is wet, and once you get a wet grass, very little will stop you except the barrier at the back.
Amazing thing here, John, is that you only need to make the slightest tiny mistake. I mean, he only seems to just sort of lock a brake, get a bit sideways into turn 2, and yet, let's just take a look. When you make a mistake like that here, it seems to always end up with you going off, whereas at some tracks you seem to be able to scrabble around the outside.
Well, the corner's always falling away from you. At turn 2, if you look at it, the camber is falling away from you, so it's natural the car is going to be drawn to the outside of the corner, and once you get there, it's very, very dirty. The grip just vanishes. Then you're onto the grass, and all you can do is just hope and pray that the speed of the car is low enough that it won't draw you into that barrier. Fisichella got away with it, and for somebody experienced like him, he'll be very happy with that outcome.
Of course, that is also part of the reason why overtaking is so difficult here. It's not just the fact that the corners are laid out fairly tight, it's more the fact that as soon as you get offline, as Fisichella demonstrated so well there, as soon as you're offline, there's so little grip, you've got no chance of overtaking.
Nick Heidfeld continues on his way, lap 27, an improvement in sector 1. Just over half a second away from Michael Schumacher's current fastest lap. Schumacher and Barrichello still in the pits with just 9.5 minutes of the session remaining, and I would anticipate, well, in fact, Barrichello is just leaving the pit lane now as we watch Nick Heidfeld around the back of the circuit, hoping not to get trapped by pushing that little bit too hard and running slightly wide as he goes through 10, down into 11 and 12. There we are through 12. Oh, the back end kicks again. That's that curve where it's been flattened. The join onto the serrated curving itself at the side of the track throws the back end of the car up.
Car looking good here though, and it looks like an improvement for Nick Heidfeld. 11th fastest at the moment. You could hear the traction control cut in on the exit of the last corner. Let's see. Well, it doesn't actually. I'm surprised about that. The last sector not so good.
No, he lost a bunch of time. And Anthony Davidson, interesting as well, who on his last lap was making improvements in first and second sectors, and then suddenly lost in that third sector. Just keep an eye out between turns 12 and 14 if there's something, maybe just more dust on the circuit, gravel or something. Looks like it's getting a bit overcast up there as well.
Yes, a little bit, and we heard from Ove Anderson that he's expecting the likelihood of rain for qualifying. A bit of a better view looking this way from on board Jacques Villeneuve's car. This is where he went. Nick Heidfeld, as we saw, looked as though he was going to improve, but has stayed down in 11th place for the moment. Waiting perhaps to come out for one more run before the end of the session. Sato's just put in a slightly better time, but he's still way down in 17th place. A lot of people, I think, saving their tyres and perhaps not deciding to run a new set of tyres at the end of the session. Well, Fisichella's tyres looking pretty good. Let's see what he can do here.
Well, he's picked up time in that first sector, and he got past that little bit of traffic that was behind him. It was De La Rosa, so swings through 9 and then into 10 and all the way around here. So easy, just in this. Whoa, look at that, through 11, the back end steps out, and again just ahead of him we've got one of the VARs. So will it come into play? We saw that happen yesterday. Fisichella was frustrated by Jacques Villeneuve. This time the VARs, that's a little bit further ahead, so not a problem, but nonetheless it's a distraction, and Villeneuve, Fisichella might feel that he did lose a little bit. He's gone to 6th.
Yeah, it's gone to 6th fastest, and it could have been a little more than that perhaps. Puts him behind Olivier Panis, interestingly.
And that was the VAR. In fact, he came up against Olivier Panis, who's now about to start a flying lap with just 4 minutes of the session remaining. And Panis was sufficiently far ahead of Fisichella not to have to think about being a gentleman. And he just picked up the pace out of turn 14. Watch and see when he's got an improvement in that first sector already.
Yeah, that's a good first split, isn't it? Only 2 tenths down on the Ferrari. And that's about as close as we've seen anybody get through that first sector. Let's just see whether this will be enough to put him ahead, perhaps even of Raikkonen, currently in 3rd position. Panis has been strong all weekend so far. Had some silly mechanical problems to deal with yesterday afternoon, but otherwise he's been running quickly all the time and consistently, and just 8 tenths of a second.
Oh no!
Well, too consistent, spoke too soon there. I was going to say he hasn't made many mistakes, and then of course on his best lap of the weekend so far, he takes it off into the gravel.
Well, 8 tenths of a second would have seen him certainly move up. Well, I mean, it potentially would have made him 3rd quickest, and it's this bug corner, this turn 12 just turned in. Immediately he knew the back end was not going to be there, and he took the best avoiding action he could and went over the gravel. But let's see what Pablo Montoya is going to do.
Yeah, let's see. This is Michael Schumacher's out there on a quick lap at the same time that Montoya's heading around. Montoya further around the lap and looking to improve on 16th, which is where he finds himself at the moment.
But he's 1.1 seconds down on what is currently the fastest lap, and okay, it's going to bring him up into the top 10, but well, it gets him to the top 6, and in fact he's 4th quickest. But I mean, 1:15.9 against a 1:14.3, and Michael, well, here we go with Michael Schumacher, comes out of 13.
Yeah, and these tyres don't look particularly new. I don't think. He's obviously done a lap anyway on it. And let's see where this time is, a 14.308. It's a slight improvement in time again for Michael Schumacher.
At the far end of the field, in fact, at the diametrically opposed end of the field, Mark Webber, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing a big improvement. He was 1:19.5.9 of a second away from, in fact, he's now just eclipsed his teammate. He did an 18.3, and that matches Davidson's 18.4. So the two Minardi drivers just about managing to stay in the Grand Prix if these were the qualifying times after that 1 hour session.
Yeah, but it will be a tough battle for them. They're really going to have to put it on the line to make sure they just make it into the race. Ralf Schumacher makes his way around, and we're into the closing moments now of this free practice session from the Hungaroring in preparation for round 13 of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Ferrari looking all set to take the front row in qualifying this afternoon, but by how much? And the battle behind them between the likes of this man Raikkonen, Ralf Schumacher, Montoya and David Coulthard is likely to be very intense, and they may well have problems from the likes of Olivier Panis and Giancarlo Fisichella, the fastest of the other Bridgestone users behind the Ferrari. So it really does promise to be a very exciting tussle, and every place gained in qualifying can make a huge difference to scoring points in Sunday's Grand Prix.
Well, Kimi Raikkonen's done a really superb job to be 3rd quickest, and the next Michelin runner is Ralf Schumacher in 8th. So Raikkonen on a racetrack which I did anticipate he would suit, he would like, but really having to do it from a situation where he knows that he's just simply being out-tired by Bridgestone as Michael comes in, and he has to make that mandatory, and it's done as an arbitrary scrutineering check. They check the regulation, they check the height of the wings and bodywork dimensions. They also check the weight of the car to make sure that the car doesn't weigh any less than 600 kilograms with the driver on board.
And everybody just now waiting for the clock to count down, really. I think it looks as though Coulthard isn't going to be back out now. He's brought it back in. Villeneuve, let's see whether he can stay on track once again. His time's not that quick. Yeah, neat and tidy this time through turn 12, but it's not going to be a very dramatic time. Bit of a lock up there into the left-hander at 13. Checkered flag is out. The free practice session comes to an end. Ferrari on top by quite a margin. Well over a second faster than their nearest opposition, which is Kimi Raikkonen in the McLaren. Villeneuve crosses the line, no improvement for him. One or two others to finish off their laps, Mika Salo included. Salo currently 12th and may improve slightly on this last lap. Let's just see, here he is. Bit of a wiggle into the top corner.
Yeah, his back end steps out again for Salo as he comes into turn 14. And Salo looking for improvement. He was 12th and he stays 12th with that time. It's an improved time, but not in position.
So just outside the top 10. We might see an improvement here on this last lap as well for the Japanese driver Takuma Sato.
Looks nice, neat, tidy through 13. Now can he repeat that through 14? Yes, good job from the Japanese. Just balances the car on the throttle on the exit. So Sato looks to move forward. He is 17th. Well, that's his best time, and he stays 17th.
Yeah, surprise. It looked good on the early part of the lap. And only a fraction... Well, I mean, he is slightly quicker on his time. But we'll have to wait and see what he can do once he puts the new tyres. Makes his way around, and everybody now, I think, has picked up the checkered flag, and the session comes to its conclusion. Olivier Panis just finishing off the session after one of the best runs of the year so far for him, but let's see whether that can be converted into a qualifying performance here this afternoon. Temperature just climbing a little bit, but that's what the Michelin runners need. They could really do with it coming up to its more typical high temperature levels. A bit more rubber has been laid down. Of course, we've seen much faster times than we saw in Friday's sessions as the track has cleaned up despite the overnight rain. But once again, it is looking favourable to Bridgestone. Montoya clambers out fourth fastest in the end, just 0.2 of a second behind Raikkonen. Could be quite a battle between Williams and McLaren today.
Yes, and that was a good effort by Montoya at the very end just to find that extra speed. But nevertheless, I think it was summed up in Ron. I think his comments, not really wanting to say what he feels, but expressing it nonetheless, that they've got a tyre which for qualifying is not going to get the job done. What happens in the race? Well, that's a different issue. And with 77 laps around the Hungaroring, certainly weather conditions can be a major factor. And Jean Todt, even when he talks to Rubens Barrichello, to make sure that our cameras, that we don't have a lip reader somewhere hidden in the pits. He puts his hand over his mouth to speak to Rubens Barrichello, and there you have your top 10.
So the classification from free practice Saturday morning as they get ready for qualifying. Michael Schumacher fastest from Rubens Barrichello. The Ferrari's way ahead of everybody else, led by Kimi Raikkonen and Juan Pablo Montoya. Then it's Felipe Massa in the Sauber. Olivier Panis going well in the BAR Honda, and another Honda-powered car right behind him, Fisichella. Then it's Ralf Schumacher, Nick Heidfeld and Jarno Trulli. So faster of the Renaults is the Italian. Jenson Button having a bit of an up and down session, having the off just before the break between the two free practice sessions, ends up in 16th position. Mark Webber and Anthony Davidson both hoping to make it into the race and beat that 107% rule, but it's going to be tough for them. They'll be right on the limit to make sure that they get into the race. It's going to be tough for Davidson, but so far he's done a brilliant job in his first Grand Prix meeting driving for Minardi.
Yes, and really that decision will be based on the pace that Ferrari decide to run at, and Michael didn't go out for virtually the last half of the second 45-minute session. Barrichello did go out and did improve, but his last one didn't get him close enough to challenge Schumacher's current fastest time. So Gerhard Berger and Ralf Schumacher confer, and Ralf Schumacher down in 8th place. He'll not be quite as happy as that as he was in Germany with his qualifying performances. Montoya picked up the best part of 0.3 of a second towards the end, and then back into the Ferrari garage as people walk away and sit down, go through the briefing and think out what they're going to do at 1 o'clock for qualifying.
Well, it's beautiful conditions out there, and the fans enjoying these warm weather conditions, but certainly not over the top in terms of temperature. So very, very enjoyable. We did hear from Anderson that it might rain later, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on that situation. And it might mean that it does see all the cars come out early in the qualifying session if they're expecting rain later on. Now, as we just get to the end of this session, we have the opportunity to speak to Kimi Räikkönen. Morning, Kimi. Well done this morning. Good job with third fastest time. Best of the rest behind Ferrari. But it does seem to be quite a gap, doesn't it, to those two red cars?
Yeah, it's very big gap, but I don't know how they can go so quick. I guess they have something special comparing to all the other cars.
Now, this is your second visit to the Hungaroring. You were here for Sauber last year. How do you rate it as one of the tracks on the calendar?
It's quite nice. It's so twisty and it's very challenging because the corners are quite difficult and the circuit is so slippery. But of course, the qualifying is going to be very important for the race because it's so difficult to overtake. Yeah, I guess it's almost not possible if the guy in front of you don't make any mistakes.
Now, as you say, qualifying is going to be crucial. It does look like Ferrari have the edge. What about the battle between you and Williams? How close do you think that's going to be in the 1 hour session?
I hope so. I can beat both of them, but it's difficult to say what they're doing because sometimes on Saturday morning they're just driving around and then suddenly on qualifying they make much quicker lap times than us, but we will see how it's going to be.
Kimi, good morning, it's John. We've seen throughout the 2 days of running that it's been really easy to slide off track. How difficult are you finding it to keep your McLaren off the green stuff, the gravel, the concrete? It looks pretty tough.
Yeah, it is because the circuit is a bit bumpy also, and then when it's slippery it makes it even more difficult. If you run a little bit wide out of the line, it's so easy to go off on the circuit.
Would you tend to make your car easy to drive in the race, or would you go for out and out speed in that case?
No, I think so. I try to make it as quick as possible, but I think so when you quickest, the car is never going to be easy to drive, and it's going to be difficult in the race to get the setup right, but we do our best.
Well, thank you very much, Kimi, for joining us after the free practice session, and best of luck with qualifying this afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Now we can look back over what's been happening during these two morning 45-minute sessions, the incidents and accidents and bumping wide. Let's take a look back.